Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
And good morning, everyone. Peter Boyle's in for the Out of the Country, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS, Friday morning, the 28th of July, 2023. 710 KNUS, 95 will be that. Woo! 95, the high today, 95 Saturday, 97 on Sunday, Monday, 93 degrees. We are in summer. Billy Thorpe, Peter Boyle's together again. I'm going to go to Sturgis Thursday morning. So we will cut into George probably on Friday morning, a week from today, with the round table and everybody up there. So bikes are on the move. Good morning to Dean Singleton. So, first of all, William and I, Billy, good morning. It's a question that has, I think, chased everybody for at least close now to 3 years. And if you remember, there's a radio talk show host by the name of Steve Deace. And Deace used to do our show all the time. Clever, funny, thought the world of him. And then he dropped away from us, like so many other people did when we did not take the side of Donald Trump won. And it was really an amazing couple of years. Deace, in an episode on Blaze yesterday, and he talked about, and I think Giuliani rolled. I think Giuliani, of course, admitting that he's a liar. But I think much like the mob stories, and I just finished a really great book entitled Getting Gotti. Gleason and the team that really got John Gotti. And many, many people, and they kind of make the case that Giuliani sort of overstates his role in going after the five families and going after, well, not only the five families, but then getting John Gotti. But I think what Giuliani did was he rolled. I think when you read those books, when Sammy Gravano, now he's all over YouTube, when the bull makes the deal, because of the tapes that they have from the old lady's apartment above the Ravenite, and they play them to, and the same thing I think has happened. I think they're playing the tapes, and Giuliani, the best they can say is he made defamatory statements. He lied. So Deace, and I almost have to see it, but I want you to hear it. And also, he ends up going not only after Giuliani, but they go after Jason Miller. And Jason Miller was a senior advisor to Donald Trump. And on Tuesday, Giuliani admitted in court that he lied about election workers Donald Trump claimed had tampered with the ballots in 2020 in the election count in Georgia. He's claiming constitutionally protected free speech, not on your life. But I'd like you to hear Deace. We're trying to get him on the show. But finally, have you had enough? Have you had enough of the Trump lies, the talk radio lies? You've witnessed what happened to Fox. Have you come to terms with it? Have you changed your mind? Have you seen through it? Billy, let's listen to Deace, because there's a part here that he chokes. He literally understands, and I wonder if that's going to happen elsewhere. When he talks about how many times he asked people, and I ask you this morning, how many of you have sent money to stop the steal? How many of you have given money to the Republican Party that gives money to stop the steal? It is a very bitter morning, and let's tell the truth, huh? It's going to be 95 for high. This, ladies and gentlemen, is talk show host Steve Deace on Wednesday, talking about the people associated with Donald Trump for recent admissions that they made in regard to the 2020 presidential election.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
Email me.
So the first of the, it's to be expected. You listen to Deace say it's a cult, and it is. Here's the first from the wall this morning. The truth is Democrats stole the election with massive mail voter fraud. Right? It won't matter. It doesn't matter. The Shroud of Turin is a fraud. It is. All right. All right. Okay. Right away. The truth is the Democrats. No, it's not. And it's time for you to come to terms with you've been had. Billy?
How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
The truth is Democrats stole the election. The truth. That's just amazing. That's the first out of the box this morning. That's Steve Deace, former New York City mayor and, of course, personal attorney for Donald Trump, was in the district court in D.C., and he's being sued by election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss of Fulton County for defamation. And look, these lawsuits are flying. And there's going to be a moment, and there comes a horseman, right? The moment is coming. Steve Deace criticizes Giuliani as well as former Trump advisor Jason Miller. We just played those cuts. I think, and you can ask, I'd like to hear your thoughts, 303-696-1971. Deace used to do our radio show all the time when Billy and I were doing Monday through Friday. He dropped away. We lost a lot of people that didn't want to do the radio show anymore because of what the position I had taken that that's a lie, that Donald Trump was beaten. Now, Giuliani concedes that he lied. Now, we don't know what happened in there, but having just finished this book entitled Getting Gotti, Gleason and these guys have how they put together the Gotti team, and the predicator really on Getting Gotti was Sammy Gravano. If you've read all of those books, and now the Sammy Gravano appears on YouTube. He's got his own YouTube show. And they had tapes. They had, which is interesting because now they accuse Donald Trump of a Nixon crime on taping. You see this on Donald Trump allegedly attempted to have surveillance video deleted. I know, tapes. They got Gotti tapes. We got Nixon tapes. And now apparently we got Trump tapes. So what's interesting to me is when they had Sammy and they arrested two other people besides Sammy Gravano and John Gotti. And there was an old lady whose husband had been a soldier in the Colombo family, or the Gambinos, in the Gambino family. And she lived upstairs in the Ravenite. And she would go out, or they would take her shopping one or two nights, afternoons, and then that made the apartment the place where John Gotti thought he could meet. He could meet with all of his members of his family, and there was going to not be any wiretaps. There was not going to be any listening. Well, the feds got in there, and they hid some wires. So they got all of these conversations with John Gotti, with all these different people, and then there's got a moment where Gotti starts talking about Sammy Gravano, and he really is being incredibly disloyal to Sammy Gravano, that Gravano did this and Gravano did that, and Gotti is basically almost a psychotic, or certainly a sociopath. So one of the things that Gleason and the DOJ do is they have the tapes, and Bruce Cutler is the attorney, and they keep Bruce Cutler off of it because Bruce Cutler appears at the old lady's apartment, and Cutler has conversations. And remember, there was a woman, and I remember her name, but then the role that she played, her name was Diane Jackalone. And in the first Gotti trial, and she is ethnically Italian, she was single, and the criminals, the gangsters, made her life miserable. And they lost that one. That's when it became the Teflon Don. They come to find out from Gravano that they had rigged a juror. They bought the jury, and this one guy who hung the jury up, and then John Gotti was set free. And it destroyed Jackalone. She moved to Europe. I didn't know any of this story. I read the book. Moved to Europe and met a guy from the Netherlands and married him, and now lives abroad, so that she's not. But she calls Gleason when they do finally get all of them. And she calls, and he tells her for the first time, he couldn't tell her for the first time, that case that they lost, that was so devastating to her and to her career that she literally, quit practicing that kind of law and moves to Europe. And said, we had him beat. We actually had Gotti convicted. However, Sammy Gravano paid $60,000 to this juror. So, in the end of the book, and it's a powerful book. It's entitled Getting Gotti. I can't wait to get him on the show. They go up and this guy's name is Pepe, P-E-P-A, I think. And they go up, knock on the door. He answers the door, and they said, are you, and he said, I am. Said, we're the FBI. and they arrest him for taking the bribes to fix the jury that walked John Gotti. Meantime, when Sammy Gravano they play the tapes to Sammy Gravano, when he can finally hear what John Gotti's been saying, then he rolls over. They call it flipping. I think Rudolph Giuliani flipped on a hell of a lot more than the Georgia election workers. And all it was going to take was one of these guys to do it. It took Sammy Gravano, when they called him the Bull. And there was a book called Underboss that I read, and we had these guys on the show. And now, if you've ever watched him, he's on YouTube. He's lost all of his hair, and he's still Sammy Gravano. But he had that, what's the disease that takes all your hair, takes your eyebrows, takes all of the alopecia. Thank you, Billy. And he always wears one of those street hats, and I watch those shows. They're on YouTube. But what happened, personal belief, Giuliani did a Sammy Gravano. And he was in there for hours. And Giuliani said in this court hearing that he lied about the two Georgia 2020 election workers. The woman claimed in a lawsuit that, and I caught some of that their lives were turned upside down by the baseless allegations of election fraud. False statements. And now they call him Defendant Giuliani for purposes of litigation. Ruby Freeman, her daughter, Wanda Shea Moss, have said their lives were turned upside down when conspiracy theorists, that didn't happen here at 710, did it? As well as then President Donald Trump and his ally Giuliani claimed they had committed election fraud in the 2020 presidential. A heavily edited brief clip of security footage, which we had, that was thrown at us every morning, widely circulated online and by Trump allies as supposed proof. Giuliani had claimed that Freeman and Moss were passing around USB ports like they were vials of heroin or cocaine. What a horrible thing to have said about these women. In reality, as reflected in the January 6th committee reports, they were passing ginger mints. I lost my sense of security, she goes on to talk, Shea, and what they did to these women. Giuliani's support of Donald Trump, and apparently at this point where Giuliani's become like this very sad drinking, sort of they've pushed him away, Trump pushed him away. So listen to this again. Can you relate to this? And we're trying to get Deace on the show. And we used to have him on all the time. He's a clever guy, funny guy. He's written a bunch of books, and he does Blaze Television, and he did, I don't know, 4 or 5 books, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, and he did the Truth Bomb and a couple of other books, and he's one of the corporate guys, and he has quite, I don't know what they're going to do with him now, but he had a pretty solid reputation in the crew. Now I just want you to think. I've already received numbers of lovely messages already this morning that now Deace is a liar, which is like he makes the case here, and Billy and I were talking about, because we were listening to this cut before. This is what a cult really is, and he explains what a cult is. And this is radio talk show host Steve Deace on Wednesday. And I don't know anybody else in the city that picked it up. Anybody else talked about it. But on the Blaze platform, well, it speaks for itself. On Tuesday, Giuliani admitted in this court filing he lied about these women in Georgia. Bill, if you would.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
He chokes here.
Email me.
Donald Trump has now been hit with a new obstruction charge at Mar-a-Lago. The boss wanted the server deleted. Everybody seemed to have a tape problem. Nixon had one. The tapes go on, right? And now there's another tape problem. Billy, it's important here because he points out about the cult. And cults are, well, generally, religion plays out in a cult. Or almost, not generally, almost in every case. A cult wraps around a religion. Even you can look at the Nazis or you can look at the Marxists themselves, much like you can look at a religion. They're true believers. Doesn't matter what the truth is, but we protect our belief. And like these already emails coming this morning or text messaging that these folks can't deal with the truth. Billy, what's a cult?
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly.
That's marking. That's pro wrestling. We talk about being a mark. And are you marking? And so with these, obviously, these very angry messages and messaging that is coming to us this morning, you're the example that you are who Deace is talking about. Now, are there people that have come to terms with this? 303-696-1971. And I wrote this down. Have you finally had enough? Have you had enough of the Trump lies, the talk show lies? Fox News certainly has, but it was an expensive trip. Can you come to terms? Have you changed your mind? Can you see through it? Oh, and by the way, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Saturday. But I'm Peter Boyle sitting in for George Brauchler. And I just couldn't wait. And this isn't a whole Billy Thorpe show. But the lines are, normally we have full lines by now, or whatever, back in the day we did. 303-696-1971. Has anybody, how about this one? And then, what's your real point today? The fact that you have to ask that after 3 years. I seem to remember a certain talk show host and his producer yucking it up and making jokes about the election while doing the fake Thanksgiving Day parade. That's a gimmick. See, this is exactly the point that Deace is making. Back with your calls right after this.
some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that.
And I am being resented as we speak. Morning, everybody. Peter Boyle sitting in for the out of the country George Brauchler. Made it to a Friday morning. I'm on the air again tomorrow morning at 9 Saturday here on 710. 95 the high, 95 Saturday and Sunday, 97 degrees. Guy comes out, conservative on air, and finally lets it go and says, I have been had. And the wall of shame. But let's go and take a couple of calls here. Tony, good morning. You're on a radio show. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks, Peter. I'm actually following up on a conversation that I had with you right around the inauguration of Biden. I can't remember if it was just before or just after, but I had posited this case to you at that time. I said, it's impossible. It's impossible that 40 million Americans, roughly, believe that the election was stolen, which is kind of what the polls say. It's somewhere around that number. And I said that can't happen. That you have to be really, really stupid to believe that. And I don't believe that there are 40 million Americans that are really that stupid. And then I went on to say, but something's wrong. If you believe the election was stolen, then you would be pounding on Washington. You would be flooding Washington, and they didn't. They didn't flood Washington. And if you're not willing to go defend democracy, then that makes you just a coward. And I said that can't be either. And now we've got a data point, I think, to look at, and that's Israel. We see what happens when a democratic society believes that they truly, their democracy is at risk, and we see roughly 2% of their population protesting weekly, and it's been going
daily.
On for months.
Not weekly,
yes,
daily.
for months. Yeah. And I had predicted to you then that I said, I think it'd be somewhere between 5 and 10 million Americans would have flooded. Let's say the hypothetical.
Well, no, I just
well, let me just finish this out because,
right.
And then thank you for the moment. Let me just finish it out because I've obsessed over this over 2 years. I said to you at the time, I thought it'd be around 5 to 10 million people would flood Washington, more than live there. They just shut down the government and say, you correct this. Now I'm talking about Democrats. Had the Supreme Court or had the Justice Department figured out some way to finagle that and give it to Trump, the election, and give it to Trump, Democrats would have flooded Washington, and Republicans have not.
Well,
and now at the time I said I can't figure it out. Well, now I think I've got it. And you can ask these people who will be calling into you shortly, why didn't you go to Washington? What if you believed that democracy was at risk? And here's why they don't. They don't care about democracy. At the end of the day,
you're really making
hold
on. Let's slow down a little bit. You're making enormous assumptions.
Challenge it.
Well, I'm not going to have to challenge anything. I'm just saying the things that you are saying. First of all, January 6th was a putsch that failed, but nevertheless, it was a putsch, and it was instigated by Donald Trump, my close personal friends, Professor Eastman, a number of people. Giuliani was involved in it, but it was a putsch, and it failed. Now, because of our sense of a democracy, what's important to know, or the most, I think, significant thing, since Washington passes the baton to John Adams, there has been a string of men becoming president unabated since the beginning of the country. What Donald Trump attempted to do was to usurp, and along with Giuliani and the rest, certain radio talk show hosts, to give you a list of people that are involved in it, Fox News is involved in it, they tried to take something that really made this country what it was. And when you read history, and it sounds like you're a very bright man, the crown heads of Europe, the watching the reactions of the Romanovs, the reactions of the Bourbons, the reactions of the British monarchs, that this man gives up the power. Washington steps aside. There's been no coup. There's been no death. There's been no murder. There's been no assassination. The military wasn't used. The church wasn't used. All the things that traditionally had happened, that this thing worked up until Trump.
Exactly. There's no secret, and that's easy to understand. Trump is easy to figure
but
out.
it's not.
As a pathological narcissist, you can predict, if you look at him in that lens, you can predict his next move always, because he wears it on his cuff. He's easy to understand. The collaborators in Congress are easy to understand. The propaganda machine of Salem, as well as Fox and the whole right wing, that's easy to understand. It's money. It's the audience that you appeal to. And I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying that the propaganda machine appealed to. What was difficult to understand was the MAGA, the 40 million. Why? And the point is, they don't really care about democracy. They just want their guy.
Wow.
I'd heard a woman at one of his rallies, and she was being interviewed by, I can't remember who it was, and she said, well, I never thought we'd have a dictator, but if we're going to have one, I want it to be Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, she said out loud what you're supposed to say, in quiet.
But remember, I still come out and say that the people who go into the street, I don't care from what side it is, it's a very small percentage. And because this country's traditions don't say that. If you go back and you look at, in the 60s, the anti-war movement, they were able to turn out hundreds of thousands of people because people had really come to terms with it. They did not come to terms with this idea that it could actually, and I think people just rocked back on their heels and said, stolen election? But now we know there's been too many insiders talking. Trump began to tell that lie in June, that they were going to steal it, but never, in the same time, if you go another level of reading, Hillary Clinton said it. She claimed that the election was stolen. But Giuliani, and I think that people looked at Joe Biden as this sort of demented old guy, and he's got this running mate who everybody hated, and how could that have happened? Well, it happened. And there's no evidence.
There's none. Obviously,
none.
It wasn't stolen.
Yeah. So,
he got more votes. At the end of the day, he got more votes.
Yeah.
But the other side does not want. They don't care that he got more votes.
Well,
they want their guy to be in power, and that's all they care about.
But belief systems, and I need to take a pause. Belief systems are always more powerful than knowledge. Knowledge is meaningless. Belief is what counts. The example, communism has failed again and again and again and again and again, and it hasn't stopped people from becoming communists because they say they just did it wrong. No, that's not the case. It doesn't work. Oh, it works, but these guys did it wrong. No, it doesn't work. And, point at Mao, the Kims, point at Stalin, I don't care where, it doesn't work. Well, they just didn't, and that's the same, that's the same dragon chasing its tail is what we're witnessing. But when a guy like Deace, and this is why it's important, when Deace talks about it, and I think, and I'll give you the last comment, I got a break. I think Rudolph Giuliani rolled over. I think he flipped. And I think it's the beginning of the end.
I'll make one quick comment, and that is, first, I think what Jack Smith has got, and he's got somebody who has acknowledged, and I remember reading this 2 years ago, and it just kind of got lost. I think Trump, he's got somebody who Trump said, yes, of course I didn't win, but we can't go tell the public that. He's got Trump acknowledging it. And I think it was to the chief of staff. I think that's who it was, and I think that's what Smith got. But the last point, Peter, when you get calls from people who take the other side, ask them two questions. Okay, if you believe it was stolen, doesn't that mean that the democracy failed? And if democracy failed, why didn't you protest? Why did you not care enough to protest like the Israelis have when they thought their democracy failed?
And also remember,
like
that's a parliamentary system too. The Israelis, you can dissolve a government very quickly in Israel, in the Knesset. We don't. We have a republic, and I think that's somewhat different. They're after Bibi. They're just after Bibi's rear end. And, Bibi said, well, we'll see what happens. But remember, it's a parliament, and the government can lose trust in itself and dissolve. Good call. Coming back, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles for the actually, George is not on vacation. He's in the military, and I'm told he's out of the country. 710 KNUS 95 will be the high today. George is in the military, of course, and is abroad. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning on a Friday, the 28th of July, 2023. 95 the high. Lines are jammed. Will the truth be known? Let's go to the callers. We go to Don. Don, we got about 4 minutes. You're on a radio show. Folks on the phones will get to you on the other side. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Pete. How's it going?
Hey, back and forth. It's good to be home for a couple days.
Oh, good. Well, you have a nice time in Sturgis, and you stay safe, okay?
Thank you.
I want to get to, I've always viewed Donald Trump as a symptom, not really a cause. I think there's a lot of people out there who feel disenfranchised, put upon. They see their values in everything they've kind of grown up to believe under attack. And this guy comes out of New York and he says all the right things and people just gravitate towards it. This isn't really that unique in history. It's just that I personally see a lot of really horrible juju on the horizon, and this guy just quite simply isn't the answer. But
it's sometimes called fill in the blanks. You can call it whatever you want. The man on horseback. Historians give definitions to these people, countless ways. Trump arrived at this moment that there had been 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Bush, endless, ceaseless wars, the ridiculousness of open borders. There was a list of things that he appealed, but what he turned into, and I voted for him twice, but what he turned into, I don't know if it's the real Donald Trump. I don't know if it's or this man has slipped into madness, the people around him, but he was indicted again yesterday. Giuliani admits that they're all lying about this. And what's striking to me, I think something that I've witnessed now for pushing 3 years, is the inability for certain people, or the wall itself this morning, to come to terms with what's happened to them. They were marked, and people get mad when they find out they were marked. And some people, yeah.
Go ahead. Well, it's really not that surprising. I was sitting here listening to the last caller, and frankly, he was really spot on. Yeah. He kind of stole all my thunder. That was a great call. But I always go back to, and this is probably a horrible example, but the last 6 months of the Third Reich. If you really want to see bat poop,
get in,
crazy
in the bunker,
on an industrial scale,
in the bunker. Yeah.
What's that?
And the final days in the bunker are just. But the comparison is real cheap, and I don't like it. But But I do believe that what January 6th was a putsch. It wasn't a coup because the military is not involved. It was a putsch, and it failed. End of story. When the putsch failed, then the rest will begin. But now when somebody said we're going to have to do something else. No, every time Donald Trump goes out and makes a speech, this is what he talks about. The election was stolen from me. And
what else does he have?
Yeah, no, it's the act. His presentation is the election was stolen from me. Well, here's this guy, Steve Deace. Maybe we get him on this morning. He was a stone cold supporter of Donald Trump, and the election was stolen. And on yesterday, or the day before, on his show, he offered this heavy criticism of Giuliani, of Jason Miller, the former senior advisor to Trump. And Giuliani admitted, well, don't you think Giuliani more than just rolled over on what happened in Georgia? I mean, almost in gangster. He flipped.
Yeah, and that's a tragedy what happened to Giuliani behind all this. And this man just leaves a trail of destruction in his wake. It's amazing to watch. You never see something like that could happen in America.
Giuliani he's King Lear. He's slid into madness. He's he's drinking. The stories about Giuliani now are just rough. And at one time, America's mayor. But it's not a new story. I mean, it's Old Testament. It's Greek tragedies. It's Shakespeare. And For instance, here's what's happened this morning. I would have preferred you to do a program on all the child abductions and missing children and the drug problems and with the border, or maybe Hunter Biden, they misspell Hunter. In other words, whatever you do, for God's sake, don't talk about Trump's lies. That's a great example. You take care of yourself, Don. Everybody on the phones, hang on. Dick Wadhams will join us. I would prefer that you not tell the truth on the radio show. I would prefer that we continue to lie. No, and it's going to get a lot rougher. Friday morning, it's good to be home. I'm Peter Boyles. Brauchler is off. We'll be back next week. I got tomorrow morning at 9.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain first-hand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning. George is in the military, and I'm told out of the country. It's Friday morning, July the 28th, 2023. Good old 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Our phone number, of course, 303-696-1971. The weather, you heard it, 95 the high today, 95 Saturday, 97 on Sunday, and 93 next Monday. I get to come back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and go do it again. I'm going to play this for you. We're going to get a drop from Dick Wadhams. We'll go back into lots of open lines. There's a radio talk show host in the family that we work for in Salem by the name of Steve Deace, D-E-A-C-E. And he used to do our show all the time. And it was always interesting. It's like so many things that happened in the last 2.5, 3 years. People quit talking to us or wouldn't come on the show, or the things we used to cooperate with. And suddenly, I was a leper without bells, as they said. And so Deace, who has been this huge Donald Trump, the election was stolen supporter, on his show on Wednesday, it blew. And I just feel so relieved that here's somebody else that looks at the truth for the first time. And we'll play Deace, and we'll see what happens to Deace's career next. It's one of the things that Bill and I talked about. But it focuses on Giuliani, but he focuses on himself. And he does use these terms, cult, and we've said this, and he uses the term marks, which we've used as well. So Deace, of course, he speaks for himself. Billy, if you would.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
He's emotional here.
Email me.
710 KNUS, good morning, everyone. Let us go to the one, the only, our friend Dick Wadhams. And this is really an earth shaker this morning. Dick, good morning. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning, Peter, and I agree with you. Between Giuliani and Steve Deace, this is pretty significant.
And also more indictments that came down yesterday for Trump or on Trump.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, Giuliani, I was mentioning, I have just finished this book entitled Getting Gotti. And it's the legal people. We've read so much John Gotti and the Gambinos and the Colombos and everything that goes on. But this guy's last name was Gleason. And he and Diane Jack alone were the first 2 to prosecute Gotti. They found out, as the book talks about, Sammy Gravano rigged the jury. They actually had it won. That's where the Teflon Don begins. But they end up using Sammy Gravano because Gravano rolls over on John Gotti. Do you think Giuliani rolled over on Donald Trump in that, how many hours was he in there? I forget. But do you think he did more than just let these election workers off the hook?
Well, I heard your discussion earlier this morning, Pete, and that's certainly the way it looks to me as well. I mean, he was in there so long. If he confesses that he was lying about something so fundamental as those 2 women in Georgia, and what hell those people put those 2 ladies through, I hope they continue their fight against this.
He's as good. They're as good as winners now. He's admitted he did it. Yeah, he's admitted he did it. Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, I do too.
But no, I think that there's more to come, and Trump has kind of abandoned Giuliani in the last year or so, and so pretty sure that Giuliani has no reason to stick with him.
It is, and maybe it's because I just finished the one book on what happens in the justice system. They did it with the tapes, and they played Sammy the tapes from the old lady's apartment with Gotti going after him and saying things about him. And then he made a deal with the feds, I'll roll over. And I think that, first of all, the whole Trump family's treatment of Giuliani, they've also treated the Kraken like that too. And Lynn Wood has thrown his legal credentials into the fire, and he knows they're coming for him. And how wide the circle will go, I don't know. But Giuliani's turned into a very sad person, and the Trumps have turned against him. Remember, he put in for legal fees. He said that he wanted to collect a bunch of money for legal fees from the Trumps, and they told him to go up a rope. And so, and this is in court filings that he lied about those two Georgia women. And the women claimed in the lawsuit that their lives were turned upside down. After my experience with my good friend Professor Eastman, I got a little bit of that. But, you knew this job was dangerous when you took it. But these are women that Giuliani set the dogs on.
Yeah.
And so this guy Deace breaks down. What do you do with him? What do you do now with him?
Well, it will be interesting to see what kind of an audience he has, because he will probably be abandoned by the true believers in the conspiracy theory.
Count on it.
Yeah, but he's restored his own credibility, Pete, by listening. That's powerful, what I heard this morning that you played. I had not heard it before. You played it this morning.
Actually, it just happened.
Ah, okay. Anyway, I just there should be more to follow around the country.
But Deace appeared here many times, and I don't know why he didn't come back with us, but he would appear other places. And now he is in essence saying, and he speaks for himself, but he breaks down emotionally. And there's a video of it, and because he's doing it on Blaze, but he talks about Jason Miller, who of course was the former senior advisor to Trump, who said, "Yeah, we didn't believe it." Yeah. And so he's in court, and he said he made false statements about election workers, that Donald Trump himself claimed that these workers had tampered with ballots in 2020. And he added in his admissions that the statements he made about the former workers were constitutionally protected free speech. They said, no, they're not. And that's what Fox News found out the hard way as well. And Miller, Miller was at the June 2022 hearings of the House Representatives Select Committee investigating the events of January 6th, and that he was present when a data expert told Donald Trump in pretty blunt terms he was going to lose. And that's been written in numbers of books. It's yours again.
Yeah, and I was just going to point out, Pete, that Jason Miller is now a senior advisor again to the Trump presidential campaign.
Oh, I know.
So he's right back in the middle of it.
That's where the money is, right?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think somebody like that, an advisor, makes? Seriously.
Well, six figures of some kind. I don't know. I mean, I will say this about Jason Miller. He's been around Trump now since the 2016 election, and he kind of got pushed out of the circle for a while, but he's back in, and he is a Trump sycophant, and so I'm sure he gets rewarded handsomely for that.
Well, Giuliani, for the purposes of litigation only, Giuliani signs this, I don't know what they're called, I'm not a lawyer, but The woman's name is Ruby Freeman, and her daughter's name is Wandera Shea Moss. And their lives were threatened. And when the conspiracy theorist, as well as then Donald Trump and his ally Giuliani, claimed that they had committed election fraud in 2020, and then we, of course, remember they had that very edited brief clip of security footage that was widely circulated. It was used by talk show hosts and Trump allies as supposed proof. Giuliani claimed that Freeman and Moss were passing around USB ports like they were vials of heroin or cocaine. And in fact, they were passing ginger mints. I'm serious. I mean, this is nothing but my real life now, to chase this stuff but that's what it was. So they scapegoated him, and this woman comes out. Giuliani, what did he do? He was in there, I forget how many, he was in there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to do a hell of a lot more in there because George is going to be almost a Rico, but he had to be talking more than except about those two women.
Oh, I'm sure he's in self-preservation mode now.
Oh boy, and Trump's wiped their feet on him, and so there was no loyalty again back to John Gotti and Sammy Gravano, and Giuliani's playing the role of Sammy Gravano.
That's the thing about Trump. He, I don't know why anybody goes to work for him because he always turns on you. Yeah. Always.
Well, and with loyalty, if you read what he says, everything is loyalty up to the point where you have to be loyal with lying. And it seems to me that, and even then, after he's gotten rid of the Kraken and Linwood, and God knows what's going to happen to, the rest of the team, or Eastman, who is, I think there's 11 counts against Eastman in California. And it's funny, not funny, ha-ha, but I've said this before. We had that giant run-in with John Eastman on the air. Dick Wadhams is here. I'm Peter Boyles in for George Brauchler. Anyhow, the things that were said and the attacks that were made, not one person, Dick, called me, texted me, emailed me, and said, "Hey, Peter, I'm sorry."
I'm sure.
I mean, this guy is in California. They're going to get. I think he gets a lot more than just getting his license lifted. I think he could head to the can, but not one person said, I said this about you, or I said this about Eastman, and I'm sorry. Now, I don't need it. The point was, they didn't do it. It's interesting.
Well, they probably are still standing behind Eastman.
There you go. I hadn't thought of that. So
they still believe him.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah. So and again, what does this do to the Republican Party of Colorado?
Well, I mean, it just continues to. This is the disturbing fact, though, Pete, that Trump still holds a huge hold on the Republican Party. He's probably going to be the nominee from what we see right now. Even with these revelations and Giuliani admitting he lied, it will embolden many of Trump's supporters to be even more supportive. And that's just the reality we're living with right now.
And that's what Deace says. Deace says, when I say this, what will you do? You look at how you've been treated, and it won't matter to you. And that's kind of like Jonestown stuff. It really is. I don't know, sir.
Yeah,
we will talk, but I want to get your thoughts this morning on this. This is one of those mornings.
I appreciate it.
I wonder what Tina Peters is thinking this morning. Well, she isn't. Remember,
her trial is probably going to get moved into next year, Pete.
Oh, really? Well,
She changed her legal teams.
Yeah. Well, wow. How come Harvey Steinberg? I was going to ask you this. The word came down that I was told that Mike Lindell, the pillow who's now auctioning off his equipment, that Lindell sent a ton of money. I don't know whether it's true. My sources are pretty good. That he sent a ton of money to her, and she hired the best. And I think if I was in a jam, I'd be on the phone to Harvey. I know Harvey. And why did they kick Harvey off or drop Harvey, or did Harvey drop himself?
That's what everybody's talking about in Grand Junction and elsewhere. That did he leave on his own, or did she fire him? But I also heard the same Lindell stuff you did, Pete. But this new legal team basically has asked the judge to reschedule the trial from October because they need time to get familiar with the case. The district attorney in Grand Junction has said, "Fine, we'll move it if you need to." So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, eventually it. But I think Dave, and then she tried to weasel a job out of Dave Williams, and I know the Republican.
He promised for a job.
Yeah. You know, the Republican Party. I was at a dinner last night. Dean Singleton was there, and Gary was there. The Republican Party has no paid employees.
No.
Think about that. No paid employees. And why would you go to work with a company that wants Tina Peters or any of these people?
And I can assure you the Colorado Republican Party will be defending Peters when her trial starts.
Oh, yes. As they will say Giuliani's a liar.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think we got a break coming, Billy. 303-696-1971. We'll play more of Steve Deace. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. This is the talk station, 710 KNUS.
How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
Steve Deace, radio talk show host that would appear with us back when we were doing 5 days and then stopped because of the position that we had staked out that Donald Trump had lost the election and now himself comes to terms with what he's done. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station at Peter Boyle's Friday morning. 95 will be the high. I think the longest waiter was Brian. Brian, you're on a radio show. Thank you and good morning.
Hey, good morning, Pete.
Hey, man.
You know, the attempt to relitigate this all, you know, people are going to believe what they believe. Yeah, I think this evidence is pretty damning coming out that people didn't knew the truth and were promoting lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, you know, when we talk about it, and I ask people like you and anyone else who's critical of Trump after office, what they can't criticize him when he was in office. His policies and what he did was good for the country. So I think the good thing that came out of the Trump being elected was his policies showed what policies matter to America and my pocketbook and my future for my kids. Policy matters. And number two, it exposed, it pulled the curtain back on the deep state and the corruption that exists in the highest levels of our intelligence. We never would have known that.
Here are the issues. I voted for Donald Trump twice. What happened, Donald Trump could have been the lion and winner, or he could have been the government in exile. But he chose not to do that. He chose to disrupt and attempt to overthrow the democratic in the terms of how this republic works. And I've mentioned it probably too many times since Washington hands the reins of power to John Adams. And it's been the tradition, it's been spiritual, it's been legal, it's been philosophical, it's been the reason why the country has been able to survive. This man attempted to usurp that. This man attempted a coup, not in the sense of using the military, but more of a putsch. At that point, I'm done with him. Now, you can choose to do whatever you choose to do, but the point of this is what Donald Trump attempted to do. It can't be tolerated. Wait a minute. Do you think that what was attempted to be done is okay? Never mind. Drive on. Let's still continue to support.
Yes, because
wow.
And I'll tell you why. Because what's going on now with the Democrats in charge is far worse.
Well, the Democrats won they won the election. This is the election. They have consequences.
They are. But it's far worse. What they're doing is far worse. And if I have to choose to support somebody, and this push, as you call it, or keep continuing where this country's directions were going, I'm going to choose the latter.
Okay.
All day, all night, because
very sad.
The consequences are far worse that way than they are this way, Pete.
Had Trump,
as far as my pocketbook, my kids, my future, the border, fentanyl,
you're excusing,
none of those things are going to be addressed.
You're
under
making
Democrat.
What you're doing is you're taking this part of why this country has worked. This is the first person who comes along and tries to usurp it. And you think it's okay, and that's fine. You can live with that.
I didn't say it was okay.
Well,
Pete.
you just
said
said
if I had a choice,
all right, what would you
to
do?
Choose my future of my country and supporting this person who put on a guise at the end of the election, then I would choose to support my country. I would choose.
It says nothing.
I would choose life over that.
Constitution is
important.
It's a choice. And you made it. And I'm saying to you, with respect, you're wrong. What happened on January 6th leading up to it and the aftermath and what continues to happen is to abridge, to to take what the framing fathers, and it's interesting, it's been said by people much brighter than me, and it's interesting yesterday that tapes come up again, which harkens back to Nixon. When Nixon resigns, and I can't think of who wrote it, I certainly wasn't smart enough. When Nixon resigns, you could hear Thomas Jefferson laugh. It worked. By God, it
so
worked.
What do you think we do now, Pete? We're in this moment in time
where
the country is spiraling out of control.
Don't nominate Donald Trump. Get a good Republican Party for the state of Colorado. I can give you a million things to do, but this is so significant that this guy.
But we don't
there's
have
no
anybody,
buts.
Pete.
Well,
there isn't anybody.
Okay, but I'll tell you what. If the Republican Party runs Trump now, he'll get beaten again.
So what you're turning into, Pete, is what not to do.
I'm not turning into anything.
What not to do, Wadhams.
Brian,
we know what not to do.
Brian,
Pete. I want to hear somebody tell me what to do.
I just
can tell
told
me all
you.
day what not to do.
See, I'm not the decision maker. I'm simply pointing this out, and then you're going to turn it on me. Well, Peter, what would you do? I said, and I watched these people now destroy the Republican Party of Colorado. I appreciate your call, but man, take care. Trump derangement syndrome. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, is Deace now part of that? And that's part of what Deace is saying, and we've been saying forever, that it's a cult. It's cult-like behavior. And this is Steve Deace, very conservative radio talk show host. He abandoned us, but he would appear other shows here on this station. And he rages, admitting to election lies. And he said it's a cult. Billy, if you would.
Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that.
710 KNUS, Friday morning, July the 28th, 2023. 95 will be the high today. I'm back here tomorrow morning. There's a new mob book, and I'm finishing it up. There was Russell Buffalino, who was this, and according to when Marlon Brando was playing The Godfather, he needed a role model, and he made the phone call to Russell Buffalino, and he mimicked Buffalino. And Buffalino, of course, plays up in The Irishman, I Heard You Paint Houses, and this guy talks about he was so close to Buffalino, they thought he was Buffalino's son. That's part of tomorrow on 710 KNUS. Billy, do we have time here? Keep going? All right. We go to Ron. Ron, you're on a radio show. Good morning. It's a Friday.
Morning, Pete. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing what I expected to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You're a breath of fresh air. I just love to hear you. I'm so glad to be able to catch you this round. Real quick, and I know it's gonna go against your feathers, my man, but I agree with that caller that called in earlier. This is the lesser of the two evils. Call it what you want. Everything that you say about this being a cult and everything, the door swings both ways. Every little thing that you can say about how people are being fooled, it goes both ways. And we just got to figure out which is the lesser of the two evils, because we are screwed both ways all the way around.
That may be true that we're screwed both ways, but the attempt that Donald Trump made is inexcusable. You may excuse it.
Come on.
Come on, what?
Pete, you mean to tell me that leaving the borders open, let thousands of kids go unaccounted for is lesser?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the tradition of electing the chief executive and what they attempted to do. And you may want to look the other way, and apparently the other guy looked the other way as well. It's unforgivable. You can't think that that's okay. And of course, no. You have to look at this for what it is. I understand. The Democratic Party is almost socialist workers' parties now, but you're looking at this thing like it's still okay. And there are people.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How come I hear the strong message of preaching. How come I never hear that same strong message being preached about this can't be allowed for this FBI to know that this computer
we're talking about the
kids.
single most significant thing that's happened internally to the political system in this country. And you will others have do it. Well, what about this? What about that? No, we deal with the truth here. For almost three. Now listen to me.
According to who?
No, oh my God! Every speech the man gives, he says the election was stolen from him. It is the principal front range talk show host. This is the topic. Fox News' topic. Everybody's topic that this was stolen from Donald Trump. Now look, if you gave money to these people, whatever you did, the point of this is you're doing it right now. You're making it okay. Ron, do yourself a huge favor. Come to terms with the truth. Take the last call or take the last comment.
Okay. Well, thank you so kindly. And I'm going to have to end it with, you know what, like you said, everybody's got the wrongs, but I will always side on the side of lesser of two evils. And whenever you have thousands of kids coming across this border and they go lost, unaccounted for, and nobody cares, and they still let it happen, we've got a bigger problem than what's right in front of us right now.
Think it through.
You,
all right, man. 303-696-1971. We've been listening to it. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. And it's not. It's not. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Hold on to your hats. Morning, everybody. It is, again, Friday morning, the 28th of July, 2023. I'm Peter Boyles, on the air everywhere at 7:45. It'll be 95 for a high, 95 tomorrow as we continue. Where is he? We got him here. Brian Gray. Talk about starting out in a commercial relationship and ending up good friends. And I think that's the relationship I have with Brian. We started out, I was just their spokesperson, and he became much more than that, then became an advisor to retirement or semi-retirement. This is a really good guy. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Pete.
No, truly.
You're probably a little bit tired, aren't you?
Well,
not used to these early mornings.
Well, I went out. I had dinner last night with Dean Singleton and Gary DeFrange, and we had a great time, good talk. And then we're getting ready for Sturgis, and so I got a bunch of stuff to do, and I'm going to work tomorrow morning. We got the 9:00 show tomorrow.
Yep.
And got the new mob book, and so all's well in the world, man. It's okay.
Well, good. Good to hear you. Good to hear you during the week.
Yeah,
so,
it is. It's good to be here.
Yeah, let's take a look at these numbers. We're off to a pretty good start tomorrow after a shaky start yesterday. Today we got the Dow currently up about 158 points. S&P's up about 34, and the NASDAQ is still running. That's up 198 points. We did snap a 13-day winning streak on Thursday. The the Dow was actually positive for 13 straight days. That's the longest run that we've seen since 1987. And then on Wednesday, we had the highest levels on the Dow since February of 2022. So it's kind of interesting. And then, Pete, what you got to do, I know everybody's a little gun-shy right now, but take a look at these year-to-date numbers. The Dow's up 6.93, NASDAQ is up 35%, and the S&P's up 19%. Wow. So one of the things I wanted to hit on real quick this morning was I want your listeners to take a look at their short-term safe money, because that's where you typically hold it in banks or CDs or something like that. You should be getting between 3 and 4% on that safe money because of the interest rate hikes that we've had over the course of the year. You know, the Feds did raise them by another quarter point. We probably won't have another rate increase till next year. But I can't stress the importance to your listeners. If you're not getting that 3 to 4%, you need to take a second look at it, because a couple $100 here and there can go a long ways into your retirement.
This is a good man, everybody. 303-843-0918. And Brian, operators are standing by. You have to go down and see Alpine Planning and how they put this together with everybody, with Gabe and everybody and Amy. And they've just been good friends. And investing is a matter of trust. They have mine. Brian Gray, the one and only, 843-0918, 303-843-0918. We'll talk, my friend, and thank you so much. You're the best. Be safe.
All right, Pete.
Thanks,
have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right.
We are going to the mattresses for these people.
Should have been the Alpine Planning disclaimer. I don't know what happened.
All right, that's a blow up, and it's okay. What we are talking about with Full Lines is something that happened when radio talk show host, and it was almost like a gift. And we have been in this fight now for pushing 3 years on the election was not stolen, and the manufacturing of all of this nonsensical Trump's really the president. And I really seeped myself into QAnon too, and reading why these things are believed and how much of Trump's people, they still use the Q. By the way, it is R now. It's no longer Q. But what letter follows Q? Well, R. And the one that I really read that I thought was interesting was, why do they believe that JFK Jr. is alive? Billy, did you ever deep dive this?
Oh, yeah.
The belief is that back many years ago, Donald Trump and JFK Jr. became friends in New York. And at that point, Trump, which it doesn't hold up. But Trump is going to run for president. He knows then. So JFK Jr. believes that the deep state killed his father, and that Donald Trump is going to go on and become president, will be opposed and by the deep state. So JFK Jr. is in hiding. And he's not dead, but he's in hiding. And when Donald Trump was going to come back on the throne, according to the QAnon people, he was going to bring with him JFK Jr., and together John F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump were going to destroy the deep state. Now, radio talk show host Steve Deace on Wednesday went after these figures associated with Donald Trump, went after Donald Trump for recent admissions that they made in regard to the 2020 presidential election. In an episode of the show, and actually it was on Blaze, and you should see the video, Deace offered this criticism of Giuliani and Jason Miller, and as Wadhams said, Miller's back on the job. But on Tuesday in court, Giuliani admitted he lied when he made these false statements about election workers that Donald Trump claimed had tampered with ballots in the 2020 election. And this is, of course, then the heat and the wrath of these believers came on the family, this woman and her daughter. And Miller, of course, in June of 2022, in the hearings in the House of Representatives Select Committee investigating the events, said he told Trump in blunt terms that he was going to lose. As a matter of fact, that's been in all kinds of different books. But it's important to hear Deace and to hear him say that he himself was marked, that he himself, this cult notion of a cult, and did you give money to stop the steal? And he chokes. And because this is an emotion, if this business is done well, then, you truly are invested someone in how this works. So without further, and Deace used to do our show, come on, laugh and scratch, and then we got the scarlet letter. Billy, if you would.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
This is the point. He's emotional.
Email me.
Friday morning, the 28th. We'll go back to the phones. Hey, Jay, you waited. Good morning. You're on the air.
That's all I got to say after that. That last clip, he sounds like a very weak-minded, unlogical man.
No, he doesn't.
The heck if he doesn't? He sounds like a whiner. I'm a born and raised farmer, a rancher, and a heavy equipment operator, and a truck driver. And
If you
sum that up, that's who I am.
Well, I don't care about who you are. We're talking about Deace, and Deace has been a very conservative support.
I'm not saying he ain't. I apologize.
Well, I don't care. The point of this is that's not a weak, whiny person. He's a guy that came to terms suddenly with the truth. And
I don't know him. Yeah.
Look, it doesn't matter what you know or don't know. My point is, it's what he did, what he came to terms with. When he watches Giuliani go down and admit that he lied, watching Jason Miller admit that they lied, made lies about election workers that Donald Trump claimed had tampered with ballots. He's very emotional about it. I don't see any weakness at all in that.
Okay, let that go. I didn't call in for that. I forgot to tell you that the only reason I have never voted, I'm 50 years old, so therefore I never voted. The last time I voted, or I wanted to, I was too young to, was for Ross Perot, because it takes a businessman to run our country, a like-minded individual. Because if you can't run something, therefore you can't build anything. These politicians, is all they do is a professional politician. They've never built anything for themselves.
Well, let's do a couple quick things. Steve Deace is not a politician.
I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, scratch that one. No, I want to talk about.
Did you vote? Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Twice, and I wish
I thought
that was the first time.
I thought a moment ago you said you haven't voted.
I didn't vote. The first time I ever voted was for Trump. Otherwise,
I thought it was for Ross Perot.
I couldn't. I was too young. I was 17.
Okay. Listen, I hate to do this to you. I got the music. It's Friday morning, everyone, and the beat goes on. Good morning. And I jumped in too early. Friday morning, the 28th morning of July. I'm Peter Boyles, in for George, and George is off being in the guard this morning, or in the reserve rather, and I'm told he's out of the country. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather, 95 will be the high, 95 Saturday, 97 on Sunday. I also get to come back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and there's a new mob book out about this guy that worked, and they called him Buffalino's son. He really wasn't, but so connected to Russell Buffalino. And they talk about who killed Jimmy Hoffa, but it's The Life We Chose is what the name of the book is. So we'll be part of that tomorrow here on 710 KNUS. Something happened, as Joseph Heller said. Radio talk show host, and it's really interesting, the relationship that we had with Steve Deace. And Deace is part of the company, and Deace was used to do the radio show with us quite a bit, and then one day he no longer did the radio show with us, and he would appear other places. Something happened, as Heller said, and he has come to, and it cheapens it to say, he came to Jesus, which I've listened to and heard all morning. But he's come to terms with what Donald Trump, Giuliani, Jason Miller, and so many others have done. And if you know the time frame, on Tuesday, Giuliani's in court, and I was thinking when Don Reggae and I used to do parody songs on the Ramseys, and could you do like, Giuliani went down to Georgia, he was looking for an election to steal. They were behind. Remember, I can already write this song. And so Giuliani admits, and I think he did a lot more than just talk about the false statements about election workers that Trump claimed had tampered with the ballots of the 2020 presidential election count in Georgia. However, he added in his admission that the statements he made about the former workers was his protected free speech. Well, as they found out at Fox News, that doesn't hold up. So Miller, of course, Jason Miller, who was the top Trump advisor during the June 2022 hearings, House of Representatives Select Committee, investigating the events of the 6th of January. And he said, I told Trump, and he wasn't the only one, in pretty blunt terms that he was going to lose. So this man, Steve Deace, who I just have such respect for right now, he comes out and he speaks about Rudolph Giuliani, about Donald Trump. And he said that Donald Trump's in serious jeopardy. And I want to play this cut. And we'll get people's takes. The calls have been red hot. The wall's been interesting this morning. So this is Steve Deace, and he calls it a cult. And he said, how many of you have sent money to stop the steal? And he just takes it from the alpha to the omega. And he gets very emotional. And this is radio talk show host Steve Deace.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying, and Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
It's emotional.
Email me.
He knows what he did, and that's significant when you make a change in your life. You know what you did, and it's so shameful. He told those lies on the air. He's not alone, but he's certainly telling you for the first time, I was not telling the truth. All right, we go to Brian. Brian, you waited. Good morning. It's a Friday.
Hey, Peter. So if it comes down to the Biden crime family and Trump, who are you going to vote for?
Well, you're assuming that it'll be those two.
Well, first of all, I don't know if it'll be Biden. I don't know if he can.
Well, explain
why
Trump's
should going to be our guy?
Why should it be? Doesn't
matter what it should be. It's what it's going to be.
I would stay away. I wouldn't vote for either one of them.
So you're giving your vote to the Biden crime family?
I just said I would not vote for either one of them. When you just say then you gave your vote to Trump.
By not voting, then you're giving your vote to the Biden crime family.
Why wouldn't
right?
I be giving it to Trump by not voting? You see, it would have to work both ways. If you logically think and do not think emotionally, if you don't vote, your vote doesn't count one way or the other. You're not giving it to anybody.
Well, let me ask this way.
Whoa. Neither one of them. Neither one of them.
Well, one of them's going to be. So you have to pick one.
No, it doesn't have.
There's door one and there's door two.
The GOP.
What are you going to do, Peter?
Well, first of all, the Republican Party, who knows what will happen, and who knows what's going to happen with Biden. So, you're doing these assumptions. I would not vote for either one of them. I would vote, as they say, further down the ballot. There's going to be other people, other jobs, other political positions. But there's nothing in me that would want either one of them back there. And so
if you know it's going to be one, who would you rather have? If you know it's going to be one, who would you rather have?
Look, Donald Trump is such damaged goods, and Joe Biden is not in charge of this. I just told you that doesn't have to.
Well, no, who's more dangerous, Peter? Joe's got spy balloons flying around because he's taking all his money from China.
Donald Trump is far more dangerous right now.
No. Then a foreign entity, than our biggest enemy, flying
Constitution,
spy balloons around? Come on, Peter.
They attempted to usurp the Constitution of the United States. Is that not more important to you?
They didn't. You're assuming a lot of stuff. And what's
this
guy talking about when he says, the guy that you keep playing every break, what's he referring to when he said about COVID?
He was talking, first of all, you're changing the subject. Number two, he talked about the vaccine. Now, do you believe Donald Trump?
Was he against the vaccine? Is he changing his mind about the vaccine?
Don't change the topic, please. Stay with me.
If he changes his mind about that, he's lying about that because we know the vaccine was worthless.
Let me ask you.
What was he referring to?
This is ridiculous. Let me ask you a last question. Was the election stolen from Donald Trump?
Yes, it was stolen.
Okay, all right. Let's go to Frank. Frank, you're on a radio show. Good morning and thank you. It's Friday.
Hey, good morning, Peter. You sound really good. One of your callers earlier said he understands how 40 million Trump supporters, dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporters think and all that. And I just like to discount that a little bit because I'm a Trump supporter and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter, but I don't think the same as the rest of 40 million, and they don't think the same as me. We all are individuals. Just to give you a little perspective on my thought processes, I was raised by a Navy captain, World War II captain, and I was taught from an early age that, or I believe anyway, that I prefer autocratic leaders, and I believe Trump is somewhat autocratic. I would think, so I prefer somebody who tells you what they think and then does what they say.
But that's with respect here, Frank, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the last, since the election.
I'm just trying to give you a perspective.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. But it's this aftermath and this looking back at what has now happened and trying to understand.
It's all just political noise, Peter.
No, it's not. It was an attempt to overthrow. Listen to me. Listen, please. Frank, it was an attempt to overthrow the outcome of an election. If you think that's just political noise, go back and ask your dad.
Well, you can. I'd love to, but unfortunately, he's.
Well, my point is, if he was
he's with St. Peter.
Okay.
Anyway, so you can restate something in a louder voice all you want. You can restate a lie all you want, but it doesn't make it a truth.
Well, what's the lie?
What you just said about
what's the lie?
What you said about the 6th is a lie, and
that's not a lie.
That's a fact.
What's a lie? First of all,
that Trump caused all this.
Oh, sure he did. Of course he did.
And you talk about, the last caller, you mentioned something about supporting the Constitution.
Yes.
Give me a break.
Okay, you got a break.
Give me a break.
Okay,
dude.
You got a break.
The guy that, open to your sense of fairness. That's one of the reasons why I always love listening to you, is because you have a sense of fairness. It's like you've lost that sense of fairness.
No, look, the truth shines through. I don't have to be fair to Patsy Ramsey. I don't have to be fair to John Ramsey. I'm sorry. I don't have to be fair to them.
Well, do you have to be fair to people who, impeached Trump based on a false dossier? You have to be fair to them?
Look, now you're going to go back and play another game with me. Don't play it. We're talking
I'm not
about
playing a game.
Yeah, you are.
Peter.
And you are playing. Listen to me. He wasn't impeached on the basis of the dossier, number one. Number two, haven't you had enough of this? I mean, have you changed your mind?
Well,
you sound like a smart man. Have you seen through it, the con job that it is?
Well, I see that there's a lot of politics going on.
No, it's a con. It's a gimmick.
And Trump's the only guy that does that. The rest of them are all original.
No, I'm not saying.
And...
Look, here you are. You're deflecting again. I'm not the only one that broke the.
I'm not deflecting anything. I'm answering your question.
Frank, you certainly are, and I'm not in charge. We're doing a radio show. Donald Trump, and what do you think Giuliani did? Do you think Giuliani rolled over on Donald Trump?
Well, I think Giuliani is a great man who is at the end of his life, has had an incredibly successful and challenged life. He's divorced and
a couple times,
cancer, the whole bit.
Yep.
And he's probably just wanting the government to leave him alone. Why don't they just leave the guy alone?
Why don't they just leave John Gotti alone? Why don't they just leave this guy alone or that guy alone?
A completely different story.
No,
Peter.
listen to me.
Those guys were. They weren't politicians. They were criminals.
Giuliani went down and lied on these women workers. He destroyed their lives.
He's the only one.
No, look what you guys do. Do deflect. Well, somebody else did it. It doesn't make it right.
No,
it doesn't make it right. What Rudolph Giuliani did to these women and destroyed their lives, he goes into a courtroom and says, well, I lied. Do you think that makes it okay for you, Frank?
No, it does not make it okay.
Then why do you play the game?
But I do know that we've lost 70,000 people to the fentanyl crisis last year.
Just change it.
And why are they focusing on this?
Just change it. You can change it up. You can feel better. I'll give you the last comment. Take it.
I'm just amazed at our justice. Like I started to say about the Constitution. Look at our Justice Department,
okay.
and you ask people who they'll vote for.
Okay.
Let me ask you
who
they'll
the Constitution.
vote for. I'm going to vote for Trump or RFK Jr.
What? Listen to me.
The reason is
RFK Jr.
RFK Jr.
Go ahead. No, you say. Go ahead.
No, let me finish my thought on RFK Jr. Trump and RFK Jr. are the only two politicians in my lifetime who have a bead on how really screwed up our FBI and our Justice Department are, and they're the only two that will take a shot at them.
And that makes everything else okay. You take care of yourself. I appreciate it. Frank, another Frank, you're on 710 KNUS. Good morning, and thank you for calling the show.
Hey, Peter. Franks are going cheap.
Hey, man. There you go.
Well, it really becomes the cult is in full throat, and I don't know if the cult is ever going to lose their throat. I'm mildly encouraged by that radio talk show host. I can't remember who it was, who basically had kind of how do you? It's like a moment of clarity, like the alcoholic's moment of clarity.
I thought so too.
That's exactly what I heard from that guy on the radio. Was somebody who had a realization, and I would invite others in the cult to come around and deprogram themselves.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they can be so just ignoring of facts. It was a soft coup attempt by Donald Trump.
It was a putsch.
That's what it was.
It was it was a putsch. It was what happened in Germany. When you have a coup, you got to have the military to be part of the coup d'état. This was a putsch. These were civilians, willing and unwilling participants, but nevertheless, motivated by Donald Trump, by Eastman, by Giuliani, and you have to look at what happened. Again, it's go ahead. I'm sorry.
What kills me is that it happened with knowledge that everything they were saying was wrong.
It's a lie. Well, no, it was a lie. It wasn't wrong. It was a lie.
Yeah, it was a lie.
It was a lie.
True. I'm trying. Yeah, I'm soft soaping it when I say it was wrong. But you're right. You're right, though. I mean, and the real harm is that it dupes all these people into believing it.
Yeah.
And so you become the cult member. I don't know how else to describe it. They're not rational. And Peter, you're 100% accurate. Look, if it comes down to Biden Trump, the system is so broken. Anybody with any sense should not participate in voting for either of those two people.
Yeah, and
it's not giving your vote to anybody.
And that's thrown. But the idea that then you vote for that's not true. It's one of those equal, when the numbers are one way or the other. If you say, well, I'm not voting for Trump, well, then you vote for Biden. Well, I'm not voting for Biden. Well, then you vote for Trump. No, you just lay out. And that would be the only, I think, rational thing that anybody who has any sense of themselves. But I don't think either one of them are going to be there. I really don't. I don't think Biden. Hey, Trump actually could be, but they drop more charges. And what I think is really interesting is that Donald Trump attempted to have surveillance videos deleted. Sounds like Richard Nixon, and trying to take the tapes and change. No, I'm serious. To change.
Yeah,
the tapes.
No, I know. It cracks me up because. Well, let's see. What's the motivation for wanting to delete surveillance?
You don't want anybody to see it.
Could it be that something on there is damning?
Yeah,
I mean, there's really only one explanation.
It's like Trump and Nixon, Rosemary Woods, and of course we now know or strongly believe it was Nixon himself that sat in there in the Oval Office and attempted, although apparently now you can hear, deleted. And so, and Hans says, Patsy Ramsey said, Nixon becomes the unindicted co-conspirator. He was part of the conspiracy to cover up. And
he
now
tacitly approved.
Now let me ask you a question. So using the logic that I've listened to from callers this morning, then why didn't the Republican Party run Richard Nixon again? Or what if someone said, well, okay, in this upcoming election, would you go vote for Nixon or Johnson? No, it's that stupid of a question. No, Nixon's done. Trump should be done, but he won't be until something more critical happens. And I can't imagine any group of people that are sitting there and thinking, okay, let's put Joe Biden back in. Take the last comment, please.
No, I think you're right. I remember, I was young, but I remember the Nixon ordeal. And there were people, I had relatives who defended Nixon to the end.
Still.
They absolutely, they didn't believe anything. They were just, and it wasn't as big a cult, and they weren't so factually, ignoring, but there was a little bit of a Nixon cult going too for a while.
And there are people that believed that Nixon was, absolutely, and we find out now that, Nixon's lying about the war, Lyndon Johnson's lying. And it's history is this great vacuum cleaner, and all the things that people once believed.
I invite the cult members just because it is entertaining to listen to.
Oh.
But like you mentioned, the Trump deletion of surveillance.
Yeah.
I invite the cult members to try to jump through their rear ends and explain that.
It won't matter. It won't matter. And
yeah, true.
Take care. All right. To the wall. Hey, Pete, Nixon won re-election for a second term. Yeah, but that's when the wheels come off. Is in the second term, and you never understood why. And Nixon was always baffling. He beat South Dakota senator. Come on, Peter. But he beat him like a redheaded stepson. There was no need to make the enemies list. There was no reason to step out and start to seek people to destroy them. He used the CIA, which is, given its charter, was for to do foreign surveillance. He used the CIA domestically. They used the FBI. They used the IRS. It's been done before, but by Richard Nixon. And it ends up as it ends up. But the unindicted co-conspirator, what's the issue? Who was erasing tapes? Now, Donald Trump allegedly attempted to have surveillance videos deleted, and that comes from the special counsel. I will get your calls in 303-696-1971. Have you had enough of the lies, of the Trump lies? Can you come to terms, and obviously people can't, have you changed your mind and seen through it? And I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'm Peter Boyles for George Brauchler, 710 KNUS, for the first time since about 10 after the hour, 10 after the 6 o'clock hour. We have wide open lines, 303-696-1971. Billy Thorpe's got the con. Lines are lighting up, 303-696-1971.
How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
Radio talk show host Steve Deace. Good morning. I am Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. We have the July 28th, 2023 edition. And Deace, of course, now joins folks on the other side. We'll go back to the phones. We go to Jim. Jim, you're on the radio show. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Peter. It's wonderful hearing you during the week.
Oh, you're kind.
I just want to say I really kudos to you on bringing that up on Steve Deace. I listen to him on like maybe once every couple weeks. And he is a very thoughtful person. And up to a month ago, he was advocate of that.
Yes, that's
2020 was a steal, stole.
Yeah.
And he ran the numbers. He said, I did it through the numbers, and I could prove it. So that's all changed based on this.
Yeah.
You know, I got to hand it to you, Peter. You came out front. You took the arrows about this whole issue. You know, I think we are at a crossroads with this in this country on this next election, and it's fearful. It is fearful of what can happen here because we have another. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can. I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, if we have another 4 years of Biden, I don't think our country can survive it.
But what's going to happen? This is this country, the nation itself. We have choices, and the point that you make about the crossroads is, Jim, that's really the truth. And there have been epoch moments where the world is going to, or where America goes, the world sometimes follows. But you're absolutely right. I mean, and there's a part of me that doesn't believe that Joe Biden will be their guy.
Well, in a way, I agree with you, but they seem to, those that have the power are still pushing him when they, I just think Kennedy would be such a better choice.
But what are what are they going to say? I mean, they're not going to say, oh, he's a lame duck, because that way nothing that he does or says will be taken seriously as if it is now. But if they say he's, we're going to remove him, and we're not going to. But I think he's so precarious. I think he's, I'm an old man, and I know, how it feels to be an old guy, but he's dropping like a rock half the time, and he doesn't look like he's in, the lights are on, and they're aware of it. I mean, don't you think that they can't, one of the mistakes that the Democratic Party made when FDR takes that fourth term, and he's sick, he's dying. But America wants and needs FDR. I don't know if America wants and needs Joe Biden.
I agree with you, but so I think actually it's the institutions that are pushing him concerning our big media, the big donors for the Democratic Party. I mean, the money talks, let's be honest.
But at the same time, you could find I think guys like Ronald Reagan were one of a kind. But I think you could find another Joe Biden fairly easy. I don't think Joe's that unique.
I agree with you on that, but I think they just basically plugging in the person they think that. Let's face it, this is Barack's third term. This really is.
Well,
all the people that he had with him are there for him.
Sure, but it's like
the point is.
I want to make a point about the new mayor of Denver, who's going to screw Denver into the ground even further. He's not even brought his own new team in yet. He has Michael Hancock's team is all still in place. He had couple months to get ready, bring in a new team. He's been mayor. He hasn't brought in a new team, so you can expect more of the same. I agree with you, Jim. I mean, but it doesn't change, because the Republican Party to beat these people needs to get somebody other than a person who was already beaten. That's Donald Trump. If the Republican Party runs Donald Trump, he'll be beaten soundly.
I agree. I agree. The system. I'm actually just really. I'm unaffiliated right now. I would actually register as a Republican just to vote for Ron DeSantis here. Get him. I think he is what we need. He's done a great job in Florida. He's a sensible guy, but I mean, we do have so many people in the Republican Party diehards that just want to go for Trump because you cannot listen. This is a fact. The Justice Department is over 70% registered Democratic.
Sure.
When you have that going on, Pete, you have a problem with our whole government.
Well,
you cannot, as a Republican, get a fair trial in Washington, D.C., the seat of our government.
But this isn't
a problem.
This isn't a fair trial. This is a man who attempted to abate the Constitution, and it's unforgivable. It's something that and again, I listened to plenty of people this morning on the wall of hate as well as callers saying that we're going to compare and contrast illegals coming over the border I wrote down, is the Constitution important? And they're totally separate. They're not to be compared. One is anybody really above the law? Is there people that can't be prosecuted for what they did? And what this guy did, and I know it's like going in a church and something on the altar, but what Donald Trump attempted to do was a putsch, and you have to come to terms. And watching or listening to Deace, and you can watch Deace, and he's saying that Donald Trump is in serious jeopardy, legally in serious jeopardy, and he jeopardizes the country. From a guy like Deace, who quit doing the show with me, we got along great.
Yeah.
He quit. He wouldn't.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. I do remember the time when he came on and you and him went to blows.
Oh, he got. He got.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
So.
Peter, I am right now. I feel like we are on so many tripwires.
Yep.
So many tripwires. Russia, China. I mean, I honestly believe there's parts within Republican and Democrat that want to get a war to just change where it is.
Sure.
This is going to be a war that will destroy literally the world. Could be if we go into nuclear proliferation. We're playing with matches here.
Oh yeah, but I had a good conversation a couple of nights ago. If we were to follow history, which I think is such a steering guide, we become Great Britain. This country becomes Great Britain in the 40s. We become a bogged down quasi-socialist state that has lost its position in the world. And a theory that I've been kicking around, and I just, with smart people, that the century, and I've talked about this, brought it up a couple of times, the century that began with the 1 and the 8 was the European century. The one that began with the 1 and the 9 was ours. The one that begins with the 2, it's the PRC, it's the subcontinent of India, that Eastern Asian part of the world, it'll be theirs. And we made exactly the same mistakes as the Europeans did: senseless wars, unanswered wars, wars of national liberation, get involved in multinational corporations, a foreign policy. I mean, we did precisely the same things that Britain and Germany, the European powers, and that happened in this country where we could have frozen out, but did not. I
think America was on the right track after World War I. They said we need to separate from the world.
Oh, sure.
And they recognized what we were used for. We were a pawn for England in that war. And what they did after the war, we're still suffering the repercussions of.
Oh, sure. I mean, anywhere the British have been, problems remain today.
Agreed. But America cannot continue down this path.
No, we can't.
We are, this is similar to what happened in Russia. I see so many signs of this. Listen, the middle class is now a minority within this country. That's a big thing.
And the polling,
that's a big thing.
And we got to take a pause, but the polling data of young Americans, under 25 or under 28, who see socialism as a bright future. If you look at the British model of what happened at the end of the Second World War, and they vote Churchill out of office, and Churchill has been this war leader. I mean, he really has been the significant, British actor on the stage. He's gone. By the time they get to Yalta, he's on the ropes. When they get to Potsdam, he's not there. And they bring him back later under Elizabeth. He comes back as prime minister again. But by this time, the British people are sick and tired. And so they vote in, I think it was Clement Attlee, and they bring in, a far left nationalization. They nationalized the railroads and the coal mines and everything that happened. And it really took until Margaret Thatcher to try and snap it back around. But we have a choice here. And the one I don't know. There's one good choice. And all of the other ones in my mind look like this. Take the last comment, and I'm going to take a pause.
I just can say I'm a religious person, and I pray because it's not us, it's our kids. I have to deal with, my kids are in college right now, and yet I'm dealing with the issue of drugs and overdose.
I'm sure.
The kids are dying in our universities as a result of drugs that are coming across the border, and yet our government is facilitating that. Where has that ever happened?
But listen, I'm going to do something I haven't done in a while. I'll bring you back because it is. If you want to hang on, that's up to you. But I need to pause. But it is repetitious elsewhere. Hang on if you want to do that. Did I lose him, Billy? Anyhow, 303-696-1971. Hi. Peter Boyles for George Brauchler. Friday morning, I will be here on Saturday. Well, the Saturday show, scheduled show, 9 a.m., following Jimmy. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather. 95 will be the high, 95 Saturday. Sunday, 97 degrees. Jim, the caller, I almost lost him, got him back. You were talking about there's not this model that we're watching now. And I have a lot of time off, and you got to read the opium wars in China. And I mention this to say what the Europeans and Americans did to the Chinese with opium is not lost on the Chinese today. And it's a good way to get back. And so as the American, Dutch, and British, Franklin Roosevelt's, I think, grandfather made a fortune in the opium trade. And they started out with the Mandarin class, but then it was down to the coolies were addicted. And so that model, and the fentanyl is this modern opium, and their trading partners are the Mexican cartels.
Yes.
And so there's factories inside of Mexico, and there's certainly factories in the PRC. And just as there were opium factories in places like Pakistan or Afghanistan, and the same places that the drugs came from then, they come from now, but they addicted a country. And if anything, the Chinese have very long memories. And plus, I don't think we're going to have a war with the Chinese, because the Chinese, so much of what we do and what generates, new cell phones or television sets or computers, it's Chinese. I'm sitting here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 screens in this room. There's not one of them made not one of them made in this country.
Yeah, but Peter, your comparison with China, I get that, but that was an external enemy or external governments doing this. This is our own internal government.
Not at all. This was with total approval of the governments, because the governments were taxing the opium traders.
But the whole reason for that is that there was an imbalance between China and England or the British government.
We collectively, Europeans and Americans, we brought the drugs to them.
Well, that's true.
We addicted them, and the deal was, it was an incredible deal, because once you're addicted, there's no end to your hunger. And so they understood that every time they could addict another Chinese, that was a customer that they were going to have until they killed the customer. And so the fentanyl dealer, they don't care if you die. Or they want you to stay alive because they want you to keep. It's what's going on in Vancouver right now. They're literally giving it away.
What our government is a complicit on this.
Jim, I got to watch my time. That was a great call, man. Be safe. We come back, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles, Denver's talk station. Stay here.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Final hour. I'm Peter Boyles, sitting in for George. George is military duty, and I'm told he's out of the country. Ought to be good stories when he gets back. Friday morning, the 28th of July, 2023, 7:10, KNUS Weather Center. Weather 95, the high today. Saturday, 95 again, and Sunday, 97 degrees. I will be back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock following Jimmy for a regular Saturday show. Part of that is a new crime book out. If you like the organized crime stuff, and I'm drawn to it, there was a very powerful Don by the name of Russell Bufalino. A lot of people don't even know now, who was Bufalino. Joe Pesci played him in that film, The Irishman. He was playing, that was from the book, I Heard You Paint Houses. And that's about Sheeran, the Irishman, and his connections to Russell Bufalino. And at least according to the book, and you do what you want to do, Bufalino gets a phone call, and he knows Brando. It's Marlon Brando. And Brando, of course, has been tabbed to play Don Corleone in probably the all-time great movie, The Godfather. So and nobody believes it's really Brando calling for Bufalino, and he speaks to Bufalino, has a relationship, and allegedly knocks Bufalino off to play the Godfather. And this guy it's about this guy who was, they put him over as Bufalino's son. He really wasn't, but he was with Russell Bufalino. So that's tomorrow. It's an excellent book. And I'm also reading, I talk about how things get knocked off. I got an advance on a book, Starkweather, about Charlie Starkweather. And I've talked to a dozen of my friends who lived in Nebraska during the Charlie Starkweather book and during the time of Charlie Starkweather. And it's interesting when I talk to people that are younger than I am. I said, do you remember the name Starkweather, Charlie Starkweather? No. But if you talk to somebody, in my time frame, and you say Charlie Starkweather, they all know. We all remember who Charlie Starkweather was, and it's interesting. I know the author of the book, and they won't do the show until I guess almost the fall because they're waiting for I think a November release on the book. But so I'm a third of the way through the book, and Starkweather is already murdered, 10 people. But Darrell Luby and Danny Beck and those guys that grew up in Nebraska on Route 30 where Starkweather was killing people, and he put like spree killer. We never used the term serial killer. That's interesting until Charlie Starkweather. And spree killer all came from Charlie Starkweather's murders. He was senseless, but in the part that gets back to the movies. So this picture gets printed in all the newspapers of Charlie Starkweather, and he's real little guy. He's like 5'5", and he's tough. He's a scrapper. Gets in lots of fights. Comes from like this really screwy alcohol family that, most. But he had this, there's a picture of him and Cheryl sitting on a couch. And she was the 14-year-old girl that went with him. And he's smoking, and his lips are parted, and he's got the cigarette hanging down. James Dean sees the picture, at least according to the book. James Dean sees the picture and knocks that look off for Rebel Without a Cause. When he's going to play his Jim Stark in the Rebel Without a Cause, but he sees this picture of Charlie Starkweather, and he sees that look, and he takes it, and he emulates, not in terms of being a killer, but that rebel, dispassionate, mouth half open, cigarette drooping down. He steals that and lifts it for Jim Stark in Rebel Without a Cause. But the book is entitled Starkweather, and I just finished the book Getting Gaudy. And it's important because I think the Getting Gaudy book really ties into what happened to Donald Trump, what is happening to Donald Trump, that I think Giuliani rolled over. And or flipped, sometimes you hear that term. And I think he did it much like Sammy the Bull Gravano gave up the Trumps. Or gave up John Gotti. So Donald Trump now is also being charged with attempting to have surveillance videos deleted. Well, everybody knows tapes and Richard Nixon. And there's nothing that hasn't happened before. That's the beauty of reading history, is that there's nothing that hasn't happened before. The names change, but the game remains the same. So finally, have you had enough? I mean, enough of all of this. And what kicked this today, and it's great work by Billy Thorpe, is Steve Deace. And Deace is a radio talk show host, and like that one fellow said, he used to do the show all the time, and the last time he did the show with us, it got intense and over this idea that Donald Trump had the election stolen. And Deace must have an epoch. The light went on, and in this episode, and you can see it on his video as well, he speaks for himself, but he talks about Giuliani, talks about Trump, talks about you, talks about me, and it's important to hear it. This is conservative talk show host, one-time huge supporter of the notion that the election was stolen and the rest of the nonsense about COVID. So, Billy, if you would.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
Gets emotional.
Email me.
Steve Deace. And he was huge in the Stop the Steal movement. He promoted it and really pushed Stop the Steal, and people sent money in. And he was, aiming to reinstate Donald Trump. And now it is what it is. 303-696-1971. The calls have been really fascinating this morning, the things that are being said, and it's all reflection and deflection. Let's make it somebody else's fault. Let's start with Craig. Craig, you're on the radio show. Good morning. It's a Friday morning.
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
The FBI was mentioned, and I've heard tell that people think that we ought to burn down the FBI and start from scratch, and that's a bad idea. And the reason why is because there's a ton of good people out there in the FBI, and right now they're busting the bad guys, and we need them.
Well,
but that's what I got to say about that.
Well, the FBI has often been misused. The creator, if you would, of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and that's a really checkered That's a really checkered life.
It's the bad apples. It's the bad apples at the top that ruin it for all the good people. And I got their backs, Pete. I'll carry their ammo.
Okay.
Okay. I was thinking of Foxworthy. You remember Foxworthy? With you might be a redneck joke.
Oh, Jeff Foxworthy, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I made one up this morning.
All right.
If you're a Republican who wants to hand Pelosi the big win by not supporting Trump, you might be a rhino.
Right. Why is Trump the only choice? You hear me?
Do you get it?
Yeah, sure, I get the line, but why is Donald Trump the only choice?
Well, he's my choice because I don't give bullies my lunch money.
Well, who's the bully?
The bullies.
Who are they?
Well, let's start at the top at the FBI.
Wasn't Trump a bully?
Well, he's my bully. He's America's bully.
Well.
He's America first. I'm wondering how many FBI agents out there support Trump.
When you talk about America first, and you talk about what the attempts were made on the backbone of this country that gives you the right to call and us to do a show and all the other kinds of things, First Amendment, your rights to vote, and he takes that and he wipes his feet on it. He treats it like Kleenex. He blows his nose on the Constitution. Oh, my God,
No,
of course he did. Of course he did.
He's got my back. January 6th, you want to argue about it? You want to argue?
I don't.
I'll argue with you. I'll argue with you.
All right, let's go to Steve. Steve, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Thank you. Steve, you're up.
Well, good morning. I'm enjoying your talk this morning. I've been listening for, probably about a half hour, 45 minutes, but it's a very interesting talk. We have a long time to the election, and I agree with you. None of us knows what's going to happen. It's way too premature to make any
pitch.
Yeah, sure. But, I don't know. This whole thing about Donald Trump disrespecting the Constitution. Well, that's what the Democrats do on a daily basis.
No, but that doesn't make it right.
No. So let's get back to the Constitution.
No, but let's do what makes this country, and I'm almost sick of having this discussion, but historically, I know. But what makes the country is when Washington, and I would urge you to do some reading, when Washington steps aside for John Adams, nobody in Europe wanted to believe it. No one was dead. No one was assassinated. No one was overthrown. The military wasn't used. The church wasn't used. All the kinds of things that went on in Europe. And this transfer of power was peaceful. Nobody was killed. Nobody was murdered. Nothing happened. Right. The transfer of power happened smoothly. Now, what Donald Trump attempted to do was to break that chain. And for that, you can't go off in the Democrat world. You have to stick with don't.
I know, but
no, don't.
How in your opinion did he break the chain? What did he do that was so horrible?
Oh, telling people that he actually won the election and had those people show up on January 6th. Everything that's happened since. I mean, if you're not smart enough to listen to his speeches, this is not old news to the wall of shame. And this is the stuff the last time Donald Trump appeared and gave a speech. It was they stole the election.
But you have to look at this. You have to look at what he's been through, and I feel sorry.
I don't.
For people.
It doesn't excuse it.
People,
it doesn't.
Wait a minute. I feel sorry for people that have given money to these stupid causes. Like election fraud. Those are the people that are really duped.
But people get. I mean, look, but they get duped because they want to believe what's being told to them by the liar. I don't care if it's an evangelical minister or, you get down the line of, con men and grifters. It's age old. It's nothing new. when the truth is found to be lies. When Grace Slick made
Well,
that, and that's.
I mean, unfortunately, I agree with you. Unfortunately, we're living in a time where we don't know the truth from lies. So
Well,
it's
yeah,
all
we do.
a bit
Yeah,
mixed.
we do. Yeah, we do. I do.
But it's Donald Trump is the only. You had a gentleman on there that talked about authoritarian leadership. You know who's leading? I believe that the people that are leading the government now are the 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds that graduated from Harvard and Yale, and they feel like they have a mandate to do whatever they.
I believe that as well. I mean, it's been that line between the Ivy League schools and Jack Kennedy or FDR, Harry Truman. My son and I went to see Oppenheimer, and have you seen the film? Have you seen the film?
Yes, I have.
I thought it was just incredible. But what's his name? Gary Oldman plays Harry Truman. He's got Harry Truman down. I mean, Harry Truman. Harry Truman never went to college, and he was a very accidental president. History fights about Harry Truman, but you see where this is headed. Lyndon Johnson, when he got in there, he knew that he was up against the Kennedys and all of the establishment, and he used to relish in doing things to them. He would bring those guys in. He had a private toilet, and if you've read those stories about what Halberstam said, he'd make them pass him toilet paper, and he sat on. No, seriously, he demeanored them as much as he could to drive them out.
Here, I want to. One of the things that I'm really blessed with is I grew up in the state of Iowa, and it gave me a lot of opportunity to meet the presidential candidates down the years, and I met them all, and what a thrill it was to meet these people and to have maybe 5 minutes with them.
Who was the most impressive?
Well, I would say, I can't think of his name. The black guy, the black man, the doctor, Ben Carson.
We met him, yeah.
I love Ben Carson, and unfortunately, he wasn't a presidential candidate, but that's a guy. And Mike Huckabee is another one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And so it was wonderful to meet all these people, and just the whole thing that your vote counted, that you're the first in the nation. I really, a lot of people really got into that and still do.
Well, that's good.
So,
good call. Thank you.
And then I wanted to leave you with a thought about Steve Deace. Steve Deace is a sports guy going way back. He's a University of Michigan guy, big Michigan football fan, and he was a sports commentator in the beginning of his career. And I don't think we need to feel sorry for Steve Deace.
I'm not.
Because he's written some fine books.
Oh,
he's
no.
written a couple of books.
But that's not.
I'm sure
that's not the point of it. It's not the point of it. I mean, I started out as a traffic reporter. Big deal.
Yeah.
But Steve Deace coming to terms with the lies, and the lies he told, and I think you leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get
All right,
that.
Thank you. All right. From the wall, every once in a while these sneak through. The royalty in Europe were shocked at Washington stepping down. He was called the Cincinnatius of America for turning down being king. We need more men like him and President Reagan. He's my friend Terry, listens in Texas. Thank you. It was all a big psyop from Trump's big lie to COVID. Each aide's political establishment is laughing while dumb Americans don't read and can't lift their faces out of their phones, are spitting mad and pointing fingers. Republican tears taste so sweet. This is the one that I think is, are you trying to destroy this radio station? Old news is old. It's not old news. That's just it. It's the lead story. It's the lead story in all the shows this morning are the seriousness of more Trump charges. And the last time that Donald Trump made an open speech, Was it last week? What does he talk about? They stole this from me. It has to end. All right, I'm Peter Boyle, 710 KNUS. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. following Jimmy. 95 the high, 95 tomorrow, 97 on Sunday. Lines are open, one line's open, 303-696-1971.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain first-hand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Here we go, everybody, on a Friday morning, July 28th, 2023. Back here tomorrow on a Saturday at 9 a.m. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Billy Thorpe's got the con, 95 the high, and then it comes 95 again tomorrow, 97 on Sunday, Monday, 93 degrees. Going to Sturgis next Thursday, and we'll do the radio show. We'll do the radio show Friday with all the guys I arrive with, Kenny and the General, and we'll do the round table. We'll do from Sturgis on Friday morning. 710 KNUS. I'll read a couple to you. Peter is still suffering from TDS. Get him off the air. I think that means Trump, that syndrome. And I used to get those about Bush when I began to point out that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we started talking about the role the Saudi Arabians played. And so at that time it was BDS. I had Bush syndrome. And it's fascinating. You personalize these things, and it's not to be personalized. It is to be learned about and learned from. We go to Gary. You're on a radio show. It's Friday morning, the 28th of July. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Peter. You are in your element when you're talking about this stuff. It's so entertaining. I don't know if you'd want to do it 5 days a week, but
no. It's
great.
It's good. It's good to be home. Good to be back. Good to be with Billy. But this is George's show. I'm just sitting in.
And George has got the best show in radio because he learned from you that it's about talk radio, not listen radio.
It is interesting. I get now to when I want to, and I don't always want to, spend a lot more time listening critically. And this is, although who would care, but as a follower of pop music, everything was everything until Elvis. And I'm old enough to remember when Elvis hit. And everything was everything until the Beatles hit. And everything was everything and it just continues that way. And I'm at the point of reading about the hair bands. And I don't know anything about music, or I don't know much after doo-wop, and then the hair bands hit. And then Billy, you can jump in this anytime you want. And then comes Nirvana. And when that hit, and then following that, like as I was chasing this with my daughter, and she said, following that, Dad, it was rap. And
it got into new metal, and that's so the idea is they started incorporating rap into the rock.
So when these historians stay with Steve, Gary, please stay with us. So when they're talking about hair bands, what does that mean?
That's the glam rock era.
That's what
kind
I
of
thought.
thing. So it's early Motley Crue. It's early. It's people like Extreme, Poison, bands like that. You're coming out of the heavier rock that's in the early 80s. You're coming out of like Rat and Scorpions, and you're transitioning into the Pretty Boys, the guys that will not only wear the tight leather and the spandex that's going to be outrageous, but they're also going to blow dry their hair and put on a little eye makeup.
Okay, well,
so that's kind of the era.
All right.
Yeah.
But then why Nirvana shows up, right? And knocks
breaks
them
everything.
Out, breaks everything. And then does rap follow that, or is
rap is bubbling up, and you have Run DMC, you have Beastie Boys, you have Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Fives, you have those guys bubbling up.
Right.
But rap becomes more mainstream alongside of grunge, and then you have rock start to incorporate rap.
Where do you put Michael Jackson and all of that?
I would do R&B and pop, but he's the godfather of that. He's really early because of what he did, and he had a huge influence on some of the presentations on other pop artists.
Now applying that back to Gary, applying that to talk radio, I don't think it's a great secret that radio is losing its position. And what happened, music radio is like I go get in my truck and all the music I listen to is on XM or Sirius or something. There's not a local music station I listen to. And I don't know if anybody else does it, but I do it. And so what's happened to talk radio is the angry white man. And all these shows are hosted by angry white guys. Well, it's like we need a Nirvana to come along. We need a Frank Sinatra to come along to change the face of radio. And, the king of all of this was Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh was not the angry white guy howling at the moon, not taking calls. You point out these guys aren't taking calls. And you're right, Gary. You're absolutely right. But if the business is going to save itself, which it may not, it's going to have to break away from the formatics that are working now because the ratings are saying it. People are dropping away. They won't listen to it.
Yeah, and Pete, yesterday that supplemental indictment that dropped is devastating for Trump. It's devastating.
Yeah. Well,
they found the document that he was waving around and that he showed to people who had no clearance to be looking at a plan to invade Iraq.
Well, there's these new allegations involving the handling of the surveillance footage and charges related to Trump's unauthorized possession. I mean, all of that. And it was interesting to me, the headline, it was about tapes. And I thought, my God, it's Richard Nixon back to haunt us with tapes.
And
go ahead.
And before yesterday, it was about possession of documents, but now it's become sharing sensitive documents with people who had no business and didn't have the clearance, and that's a felony. And so Trump needs to be elected president because he knows he's guilty and he may end up in jail. And what's going to motivate this, I was thinking about this morning. There was an attorney on CNN, and he was defending Trump, and he kept saying he's innocent until proven guilty. He's innocent until guilty. And what's going on is he's not currently one of Trump's attorneys, but he's looking for a paycheck. And, the donors to the Trump campaign are really paying for his defense. And anyone who's defending him is looking for a paycheck because he they know these attorneys.
sure.
If they can get can get on the payroll, it's going to go on for years.
No, this is going to go on for quite a long time. The question is, will Donald Trump be the candidate for the Republican Party, and will Joe Biden be the candidate for the Democrats? I don't think either one will happen, but it obviously could and possibly will. But I can't see the Dems sticking Joe Biden up there, because especially this ultimatum that's being given that if you don't love and support Donald Trump, then you must love Joe Biden, which is not even in the ballpark. But it's the either or. And what I think is important is Giuliani. Giuliani, I think he rolled over on Donald Trump, and if he's done that, and he did it in Georgia, and that's almost going to be a RICO when that drops. So
yeah, but that trial isn't going to happen until after the election.
And I agree, but
the supplemental indictment that dropped yesterday basically locks in that it will be Trump and Biden for two reasons. One, Trump needs to be elected to stay out of jail, and two, the Democrats know that Biden can beat Trump in the 6 swing states.
Yeah, he may be. That's right. He may be the Dem that can do it. But, boy, that doesn't put the country in a good shape. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Larry. Larry, on a radio show, final hour of George's show. Peter Boyle's on the air everywhere. Thanks for calling in. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Peter. Yeah, I just wanted to come back around when you talk. Is that Steve Deace? Is that his name?
Deace.
Deace. Okay, yeah. But and I used to listen to this guy a lot because I always like to vary, what I read and what information I take in. And I remember he's a minister, and he's really into. Huh?
No, I don't believe he's a minister.
Yeah, because I looked at him. Well, he maybe not, because I listened to some of his podcasts, and he talked about family values.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. He's written a number of books. Actually, when we decided to do this, we did a couple of reviews. He did one entitled "The Rise of the Fourth Reich," and I read that, and he did that show with us. And then he did Truth Bombs with the other one. But that's where he and I went sideways on each other. I'm going to really do everything I can to get him on the Saturday show, because he quit doing the show, man. He really did.
Well, I think you should, because he's just not a flag blowing in the wind. This guy really has some values.
Oh, he's very bright.
And I stopped listening to him when he did go off the deep end.
Well,
in my opinion.
But see, talk radio goes off the deep end almost as well. Mm-hmm. Fox News goes off the deep end. Look, I mean, the fallout from what these last couple years have meant will echo for another generation. It's the fact that people don't buy much of the media anymore, and Donald Trump came up with that, he called, but fake and false and all those charges, and it turns out it was, who's really the fake news? It was Fox News was the real fake news, and Donald Trump championed Fox News, and so when it was said and done at the end of the millions of dollars that Fox has to pay, who's the real fake news? It was Fox.
Yeah. Hey, Trump, let me say this,
right,
because to me it's just all true. Trump would be president right now if it wasn't for his arrogance.
I agree.
Trump gave it away. His arrogance is so much there, and in my opinion, Trump, this is the guy who wanted to be king. He wanted to be Putin. He wanted the guy from China. He wanted absolute power. And then if you look at it, he just carnivorous, and then he bites him own self.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting to me how people excuse that. And then the way I see Trump, Peter, again, the man was president. That's why America is great. But he gave it in, and then what's useful to Trump, and I'm gonna say this, and it's not, I don't know which way to put it, but I don't want it to be demeaning.
It's okay.
But it's like Trump for useful idiot. Trump look at people, and the people, people who are championing him, and they won't look at the facts. he needs them, he used them. Yeah. And then also on the other side is people see Trump as a useful idiot, whether it be senators, whether it be, people who voted for him. So it's a circular, annihilation.
Well, if you go back and listen to Deace again, Deace, and I was trying to copy some of this as he spoke again for the 98th time, but how many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal? Yeah. How many shows did I waste your time talking about this in the last 3 years? I still have not recovered. And this isn't some nickel dime. This is important where he's saying, I did this and I'm ashamed of myself. And Fox News has not said they were ashamed, but they're shilling out and they've gotten rid of people. And believe me, so the business will purge itself. But I personally believe, as a reader of history, that there was something the mentors that I had in this business. Some of them went through what was called the scandals, and the scandals were the radio scandals of pay for play and payola and all the things that happened. And it was mob connected. There's a lot of stuff about the mob and how they could make and create hit records and all this stuff. So it wasn't the FCC that looked at that. It was the Senate, the U.S. Senate. And to see what happens in outcomes of elections. But someday, and I think coming soon, the Senate, the Democrats have always wanted a hunk of talk radio since Limbaugh. Mm-hmm. And I think they'll take a bite out of this. And, how could you get away with this? And how could you do this? And somebody's have to stand too. And right now it's only been money. But a guy and money's, I wish I could say that, right? But when Deace comes out and he said, oh, yeah, talking about Giuliani, he said, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller said, oh, we knew all the time it was BS. That's chilling. That's chilling.
Yeah, and I would say, Peter, too, is like I hope that people would really research that because, again, he's not just a flag blowing in the wind.
No, he's not.
Way. This guy is informed. Again, and also, Peter, I just want to say lastly, I wish I would have, $100,000, $10,000 every time someone come up and say America's going to go down the drain because it's president. They've been saying that for decades, and that Obama's going to destroy. They talk about. From Republicans do it, Democrats do it, and Peter, we're still here.
Talk to you. Thanks.
Okay.
Right back after this. Hang on, 710 KNUS. Peter Boyle's in for George. George is in the military, and I'm told he is overseas. It'll be good when he gets back. Friday, July the 28th, 2023. 95 will be the high. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Our boss, Kelly Michaels, came in, and we're talking about it. And I think it's important as we sort of end the show to play Steve Deace. And Deace is a remarkable talk show host, was huge in Back the Steal and election fraud and the COVID fraud and the rest of those issues. And something happened, as Joseph Heller said, and we'll do everything we can to get Deace on a Saturday show. But this is a man who's clearly changed his mind, and, well, he speaks for himself.
We are going to the mattresses for these people. We are offering them more accommodation, more chances than we'd offer our own family members, for goodness sakes. And for what? To have Rudy Giuliani go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell the January 6th commission, yeah, we all knew it was BS. What is this? Some of you don't like it when I use the cult word, but when you like being treated like a schmuck and ask for more, that is a cult. I'm the mark. I'm the sucker. I want to be such. And I resent the person who tries to get me out of that. Those are marks of groupthink, frankly. How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered between the election fraud and COVID. I probably have the smallest Facebook following of any major show in this entire industry. I will routinely post things on Facebook, get like 2 or 3 comments. It's like Facebook is like, we won't ban you because then you'll whine about it and generate a bunch of publicity. So we'll just make it that no one sees your material at all. Why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue. Only to have Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, I was lying. And Jason Miller say, oh, we knew it was all BS.
All the best people, Steve.
Email me.
Yeah. All right, we got about 30 seconds, and then I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9, and we'll see what happens then. That was an important moment, as important as anything has been in a long time. Plus, Donald Trump, again, attempted to have surveillance videos deleted. That is Nixonian. Please come to terms with what you believe. Don't ever think for a second that knowledge and belief are the same thing. It's like trying to build a case. There's a lot of difference between weather and climate. You can drive a truck between knowledge and belief. And these people have long believed a lie. Billy Thorpe, thanks. I'll see everybody tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We do it one more time. I'm Peter Boyles on a Friday. Thanks for letting me sit in and momentarily sit in for George. 95 will be the high today, 95 Saturday, Sunday 97. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.